This is Joe from ArtAlienTV, and today I've got a very quick update for you on the crashed craft that I showed in the previous video. This one here. I did this video 10 days ago, and I did another one before that, a short clips video a few days before that, right? Now what I've done, I'm just going to show you some comparisons, size comparisons of this thing, because it's actually really big. And not only is it really long, but it's very, very wide. And I've got some diagrams that I've done. I spent a bit of time doing a bit of research on aircraft and aircraft sizes. Now, this may not be a conventional aircraft at all because there's no wings on it. But it may have had wings that have broken off, or it may be more like a UFO type craft or something like that without wings. But it does have a tail. Here's a basic clip of it. There's the tail and there's the body. Now, this doesn't look very big for some reason, but it is very large indeed. And when I show you this, you'll get a rough idea of how big this thing is, right? Now, at the top here, we've got an A380 Airbus, which is over 72 meters, nearly 73. Then we have the crashed craft on Mars, which is 64 meters. And then we have an Airbus 330-200, which is 58.8. There are a whole bunch of Boeings and other Airbuses which are actually the same size as this, the same length, at around 63.6 or 7 meters, right? There's a Boeing that's 63.6 and another Airbus which is 63.7 or something, or the other way around. But there's loads of aircraft this kind of size, large passenger aircraft or transport craft that are similar sized as well, okay? So this isn't the biggest aircraft ever spotted or anything like that, but it's very large. And the point is, if you actually look at this here, this is done to scale. Like, I very carefully scaled this so the length matches up with these. Look at how wide this thing is. Now, I've stretched this a little bit because this thing is angled on the ground. It's not lying flat like this, it's at an angle. So there's a little bit of distortion in the image here where I've actually straightened it. And it makes it look a bit odd because the photograph wasn't taken at this angle, right? So I've actually narrowed this a little bit. In reality, the original clip I did, this was much wider. It was about another quarter of an inch wider this way, thicker. So it may actually be wider than this, but basically this thing is huge. And to give you an idea, I've got this up here. Now, this is a size comparison between an A380 and a Boeing 737. Now, the 737 is like your standard going on holiday to Spain or wherever sort of aircraft. They're the sort of run-of-the-mill jets that you see in most airports. They're the most common pretty much. But the A380 is very large and is the one I just showed you in that diagram. But look at the width of this thing compared to this. It's about 4 times the body width. It's a double decker and it's much, much fatter. It's not just longer, but it's much, much bigger in body size, okay? And this is similar in body size to the one we've got here. Because when you look at them up close, I'll go back a little bit because you can't focus on it very well. This is much wider than that. So that A380 I just showed you in that footage, which is this one at the top, is narrower than this. This is even fatter than that. It's not quite as long as that, but it's fatter. And this may have actually had a longer nose on it, this thing. Before it crashed, it may have actually had a nose coming out to here and may have been 70 meters long. I don't know. It may have been 68 or 69 or 70. Who knows? It could have had a pointed nose on it. Absolutely no idea. There's no way of telling that. There is wreckage on the ground where this thing is, but I'm not sure if it's actually related to it. You can actually see it in this image here. If you look at the bottom, we've got this stuff behind it here. Now, whether that was attached, some of it, I don't know, but it actually looks like a structure of some sort. But what I'm trying to get across today is how large this thing is compared to conventional aircraft on Earth. And it's as fat as something like an Antonov transport plane, the Russian military transport, or some of the other transport planes we have. Is that kind of chunkiness, that kind of girth to it, right? So this thing wasn't just some crashed UFO or crashed sort of space probe. It's much bigger than that. This was carrying something, either designed to carry people or equipment or something. And when I did the previous video, I did say that I thought it might be some kind of biopod, and that it might have released a load of spores or something, or algae into this area around it when it crashed here, right? That is a possibility. I mean, I can't prove that, but the point is, since I'd said that, I've done another video on the same area, which is this one here, Mars tree and giant flower, right? So there's trees, shrubs, bushes, and there's a giant flower in the same area, right? The tree and the flower are about a mile away from this crashed craft. And there do seem to be loads of things like branches and big roots in the ground. And when you look at these things on the actual Gigapans I've got here, you can see all this stuff. I've marked it all. This is the basic red one. This has been the colour's been enhanced a bit on this. But basically, when you look at this area, there's loads of organic shapes and looking objects on the ground, like possible fungi and plants and that kind of thing, right? So the whole area is like a labyrinth of life almost. That's what it looks like. Now, that doesn't mean that that all came from this thing. It may have already been there. Now, Melis Chasma, which is where this thing is on Mars, translates as Apple's Chasm. Now, why would NASA call it Apple's Chasm? Is that a clue of some sort? Are they hinting at something? Because this is how NASA often communicate to people like me and you. If there's something interesting, they'll often give it a slightly cryptic name to give you a hint that there's something there to look at, okay? And I've noticed this before. And that's what they do. They're not allowed to tell you directly what that is there. They've been gagged for many years. But they give names to things that give you hints that there might be something there, some kind of life form or plants or whatever. Okay? That is the way they operate. They operate in a sort of clandestine cloak and dagger way so they don't get found out. Because people at NASA have been known to go missing in the past. Quite a few of them, in fact, if you look into it. So there is that, okay? So they have been gagged for a long time. But this was just a quick update, really, to show you how big this thing is. The body of it is actually thicker than this. Which is the A380 Airbus, right? There's also a Boeing, which is a very similar size as well. The A330-900 is actually 63.6. That's almost exactly the same length. And the 787-9 is just under 63. And in fact, if you look at all the different variants of these aircraft, there are loads of them which are similar size, around the 64-meter mark. Okay, that's a fairly common size for some of the larger ones, but not the largest. Okay, so you could go on forever looking at different aircraft and finding one the same size, but the point is, this thing is very, very wide. It's very chunky. This measurement here, and we can measure it on this map here. I'll just measure it for you. Let's see how wide this thing is. Let's get the measure, because I did the length, but I didn't do the width. There's the length. It's around 64. I mean, you could say it's 63.7, you know. I mean, it depends how accurate you measure it. Let's do the width of it as well. From the thickest part there to the top. That's 15 meters. So that's 49.2 feet. That's pretty big, right? It's just under 50 foot. And that's big. Now, that I think is wider than the A380. It's chunkier. You could actually look at the spec on some of these things. If you just do a Google search or whatever, you can look at the spec on some of these craft. Yeah, see, the actual height is 16.79, but I think that's with the wheels down, not just the body, right? I think that's the measurement of it when it's actually landed. But I could be wrong. This is on par with the A380 in width, similar width, and it's longer than the A330, but it's very similar to some of the Boeing craft in size as well, which are around the 64-meter mark. Okay, here's the flower, which is about a mile or two away from the crashed aircraft, and it's 59 feet wide, and it's got a really nice deep yellow with a sort of white edge to it around the edge there, and it's on this kind of thing sticking up like a trunk of some sort. It may just be a coincidence that there's a crashed craft in this area. There happens to be things like trees and plants and flowers and things that look like giant fungi on the ground. Okay, now this is well over 100 feet tall. This thing is absolutely insane. The variation of things we have here. I mean, what's this thing with a circular part here? Is it a giant fungus? I think it could be. This thing here. It's absolutely insane. Some of these things are so huge. And some parts of it, like this, are very chaotic. And this is what I named recently the entrance to hell. And there may be broken wings down here somewhere, but they may have fallen down here. There's these deep chasms everywhere, so wreckage could have got swallowed up. When you're dealing with things this size, this isn't just some little flying saucer that might have had a couple of little green dudes in it, right? This is way bigger than that. This is a transport sized craft, similar in size to some of the large transport planes or commercial jet airliners we have on Earth, okay? It's very, very large. So that's it for today, really. I just thought I'd show you some of these diagrams I've got. Thanks for watching. Clips coming up now.